Welcome back to TTC. From our last lights episode, it's clear a lot of you guys want to see power tool work lights, flashlights. Well, I guess the day was bound to come. We test power tools, we also test lights. Let's knock this out with some lumen testing, monster levels of runtime on these big battery boys, and of course, drop testing because science. Fully realizing here that ain't nobody gonna be switching power tool brands for a decent little flashlight, so this is more going to clue you into ones that are and aren't worth your time. And if I'm honest, mainly in an effort to shame top brands these days into actually trying to make a real flashlight that belongs on this side of the millennium by only testing ones worth their plastic. Anybody home over at DeWalt, 110 lumens? This is their current 20 volt flashlight offering. M18 ain't safe either. This one's sporting a whole 100 lumens. In 2024, they're selling these and putting them in kits. They have red lithium ones as well, which are good we find, but ain't going to be powering tools with those. Makita has like 4 models, 160 to 200 lumens. Well, these are very old models, I'll admit. Maybe brands just don't want to develop new. Nope, this is Makita's XGT 40 volt, came out recently to up the game to 160 lumens again. A 2023 Innovation Award finalist. You guys serious? We have cell phones now. Most folks aren't needing these 100 lumen flashlights anymore. So today we're only looking at some flashlights and work lights around above the 300 mark to encourage these brands, stores, Lowe's and Harbor Freight included, to at least step up to the plate and stop putting 20-year-old tech levels of output in full-size power tool looking bodies. And we're talking about little utility work lights here for stuff around the shop, not these jumbo spotlight guys for seeing a mile away. Would love to sometime, but we're working with a 3-inch opening on our integrating sphere here, which barely fits some of these models from today, so no dice on those. They all sort of look the same to me and same spec anyhow, but let's dive in. In order of price, and that also for the most part means in order of advertised lumens, up to these 1000 lumen work lights, we have the first Ryobi PCL 660B for just 20 bucks. This is a 280 lumen rated flashlight that articulates, doesn't seem too spot focused for close-up stuff. Yeah, these aren't feature-packed tools, guys. Let's just lumen test it. And we got an all-new custom-made integrating sphere that we asked TK Lamp to cook up for us to let us know what you'd like to see in it. It's got live and exportable data log charting and sample rates, and can even run off of spare 18650s we use to build power tool batteries with, just slotting them in here to run corded or cordless. Sorry, I geek out about this kind of stuff. I love this thing. Safe to say, though, it's fully capable to measure this Ryobi, and it has been calibrated down to these levels, which here is 290 lumens of its advertised 280. And with the battery size to watts draw disparity on this thing, you're not going to be seeing that output dip up to the ANSI 30-second standard. These sort of just stay there. For Candela though, measuring its range capability, something almost none of these advertised, that's around 7700 Candela here. And the new sphere also will calculate beam distance, which is 175 meters in this one's case, which we'll put here. We also found that for that $20, you get an incredible amount of durability to our surprise on this model. I mean, these are overbuilt looking tools for what they are. Pen lights are 300 lumens these days, but even with the lead foot of a battery attached to this Ryobi, it breezed through our predetermined gauntlet of drops from increasing heights, up to 10 feet with a battery and 18 feet without a battery, no problem. This gets a 9 out of 10 from us, just to allow for some future headroom at the top. This is good stuff. Next, we got the $25 Heart, and this is a 300 lumen flashlight with a USB-C cable because it doesn't take Heart batteries. One of these doesn't clip on, which is totally something we knew when buying it. Just double checking the box here. Yep, totally knew that. It's in the shape of a power tool battery flashlight, like its base looks like it could take your 20 volt Heart packs, but that's only really going to confuse the feeble-minded people out there, not smart folks like you and me, right? This small capacity 18650 battery is only 1600 milliamp hours, but is removable, replaceable, which is cool for simple upgrades, but you need button top 18650 batteries. Flat tops from our builds don't work. But yeah, after charging it a couple hours up to 1 amp and charge rate of that 300 advertised, is making 295. And you may have noticed its beam, a center focused one, good for 14,200 Candela or thereabouts, 235 meters of distance, looking good for $25 with battery included. Hard to be mad at that. Don't imagine it's going to ace runtime testing coming up in this crowd, but for drop testing, it turns off each time it's dropped, which is annoying, but otherwise can take a bit of a punishment. Not being designed for a heavy battery attached at the bottom, the weak point turned out to be where one usually goes. The screws each broke off in half. At the second drop of 8 feet, this gets a 5 out of 10. I like the magnets on this thing, so maybe it won't be falling a ton for you as much as the others do. Moving on to rigid. Upping the price to $28 now, but lumens up to 400. 400 is what we've long felt to be a good starting point for automotive work lighting. This has a hang hook, which is one of the few differences with its sister Ryobi here. That and its head ratchets into separate angles, which we like as well. Of its 400 advertised, this thing's gonna make 400. Man, these are way more honest tools than we're used to seeing and testing around here. Not much reason to stretch the facts when you have 10 cell batteries and only advertising 400 lumens, I suppose. In case you're curious, a $220 12 amp hour rigid battery makes, also 400 lumens. These are not being throttled back by lack of juice. And otherwise, also similar to the Ryobi with 7600 candela or 173 meters of beam distance. Having more lumen output to make the same candela, this one must be a bit less center focused with the beam. The rigid lasts near as long as the Ryobi does. Not sure if this comes across on camera, but we're absolutely trying to kill these things. And eventually, if you're determined, you're just testing the battery pack durability, as dropping the bare light against the ground doesn't bring much mass into the equation. Eventually, the rigid battery has a hard time clipping back onto it, and when you can get it clipped on, it falls off very easily, even with light batteries. This got an 8 out of 10. It made it to the top drops before doing this. Next up is Works. Similar story, 350 lumens this time. This gave us another chance to test the recent PD Nation batteries for runtime and durability, so we took it, but can be used with standard Works batteries as well, of course. It's a 350 lumen flashlight for 30 bucks, and it makes 370 lumens with any battery type. Nice. And it's a spot focus thrower for sure, 16,000 candela, 255 meters of distance. Weight was the same, so we decided to drop test it with the PD Nation battery as well, so if either breaks, we get more data. And while more happy to separate the battery halves on that PD Nation, the Works flashlight was ultimately the loser of this battle at 4 feet lower height tested than the other power tool batteries, how far they've gone thus far. It does still work, but the housing is broken in the back, happy to be filled with dirt and water now. This gets a 7 out of 10. Not bad. All right, and finally stepping up the game now, we have the M122353 because the M18 flashlight is in a sad state at the moment. Not that this model came out recently or anything, but it is rated for 750 lumens and 700 yards of beam distance. Unlike the rest of the 18/20 volt models today, it is 12 volts, so we'll have to do some math when it comes to its runtime to compare to the others, but we're finally dealing with some decently spicy specs with this guy, which comes with it a noticeable increase in price as well at $70. Let's see if it's worth it. The 2353 makes right around 820 lumens of its 750 advertised. Nice. This is with a 5 amp hour high output battery with a 2.5 amp hour high output. That is still about 820 lumen. Heck, with a knockoff Waitley 6 amp hour pack, it's also the same. A good place to be using cheap batteries like this, just looking for capacity. Its real party trick though is candela. We're talking 70,000 candela. Its price may be in a different league, but it's also in a different league when it comes to range, if that's what you're looking for. This display does say about 530 meters though, which works out to not 700 yards, but 580. Pretty far into the episode to be seeing something over-promising on the specs though. These guys play it pretty straight. It's also incredibly hard to kill. Well, it is M12, so you have the common battery falling out phenomenon with a real battery or especially with a non-authentic one. But this took just as many hits as the Ryobi, and with some aluminum housing out front, it's heavier as a bare tool for those drops as well and was unfazed. You can really feel that aluminum heat up after some use as well, a result of using a real high power LED chip, unlike most of these. Yeah, this gets a 9 out of 10, still ticking, not going to be breaking this without doing something very unfortunate to it. All right, and we've made it to floodlight type work lights. We have two 1000 lumen examples today, the DeWalt DCL 050 for 70 bucks and an Amazon example from Yav for $27. That's definitely copying their classmates' notes on this one. I actually forgot this was an M18 example. Seeing this packaging, I thought we may have bought a Makita flavor as they make it in several brand types. The $55 M18 version of this sort of design is only 300 lumens and 10 years old, so we went with the 1000 lumen $29 tool to see how it compares to a real deal. Even the vents and aluminum heatsink fins you can see inside on these two match. The DeWalt does feel a bit more substantial though when you're handling it. Not a bad design either. The size of these make the tool battery actually incorporate a bit better, and the weight of that battery acts as a decent base for this length. A decent looking work light, we feel. Let's see what they can do. The M18 Amazon Special makes 810 lumens of its advertised 1000, and the DeWalt makes 930 or so. Finally, some of what we're used to seeing with these lumen claims, except this time we might be the liars. You see, our 3-inch sphere opening is just about encompassing the 3 LEDs on each one of these lights. So after testing was all completed, we decided to tear these tools down to fish their bits into the bowl, which was sort of fun. And I'm glad we did too, because this DeWalt was hiding a little cast steel secret in the handle here. Maybe some Beats headphones mind games going on, and some of the reason for the substantial feeling it had. I'm sure it has to do with the fact that it's top heavy, though the weight doesn't stop it from falling over by itself. And it does stand up with a small 2 amp hour battery either way, but does allow for more angle with that one. I'm not sure, but was something we'd never seen before on a tool, so thought you might find it interesting as well. Hooked into the sphere, that cob array is now making for the DeWalt 960 lumens. A little improvement there for accuracy's sake. In the Amazon, that one's also seeing 930, 920 to 910 lumen or so. Yeah, about the same. A no-name Amazon brand actually sort of delivering here. They did a decent job of replicating this sort of tool without lying about the output with similar heatsink and all. That's interesting. The real difference you're going to find is if you're the unfortunate type and gravity often has its way with you in this type of scenario. With the weight of an XE 5.0 on it, the Amazon tool isn't going to brave anything much above stepladder height. It has an ejection seat function around 5 feet, helping speed along that teardown process we did on it. The DeWalt, on the other hand, and the reason all the other lights got 9s today and not 10s was a way to reserve a 10 for this guy, because drop and drop again, a heavier, longer, more awkward shaped tool with a hinge and an added cast metal weight inside, it could not be killed or really scuffed all that much, and still functions the same way it did when new. Neck ratcheting clicks and all. Eventually we were just going to be killing the battery here. This gets a 10 out of 10. Those extra dollars are going somewhere. Okay, so runtime, as you can imagine, these lights, they last forever. Basically 10 18650 battery cells for each relatively low lumen level light, except for the M12, but it is using its larger 6 amp hour battery here for that M12. And that all looks like this. And the heart, yeah, it's the outlier here. Not trash for the 1600 milliamp hour battery inside it, really, at 3 hours and 40 minutes. Might want to put a 3K milliamp hour in there though. Then the M12 is next, due to putting out a lot of light and having less total watt hours on tap. 5 hours and 45 minutes. Not sure who's using a spotlight longer than that. I'd call it a win. Then the work lights. The DeWalt surprisingly dives first with the same battery size, then the Amazon dies off first. Spending more of that time in useful work light lumen levels, we're talking 8 hours of an advertised 6 hours. That's pretty good. The DeWalt spending the last of its 10.5 hours, sort of low. The Works and Rigid perform essentially interchangeably, upper 300s, very useful amounts of light, for 14 to 15 hours. Damn, the Ryobi with the same battery size, but less output, is enjoying that experience for a full 22 hours. Yes, you can use it in its full high setting for nearly a 24-hour cycle on a 4 amp hour battery. Speaking of amp hours, this is how this all boils down. This is like a buyer's guide for each tool, how much runtime you're going to get per amp hour written on the side of the battery you already own. Just a quick reference guide so you know how long your battery will last before buying. Also a rough indication of efficiency, except for the M12, which is on a different voltage. Among the flashlights, I'd say the Rigid is probably the best deal, 28 bucks, durable, lasts forever, and is the highest lumen non-spotlight. If you want a longer range spotlight, well, the M12 is the obvious choice here and was objectively good throughout, though not the cheapest thing. Overall, bang for the buck across everything has to be the Amazon YOV, which they make for Makita and DeWalt packs as well. We did not peg this thing for getting near or around 1000 lumens like the DeWalt does. It's often easier for these brands to make it look like the real thing and then cheap you out on the specs. These are simple tools, so would probably buy this one again. Unless you find yourself atop a ladder often, then spring for the DeWalt or buy 2 of these. Appreciate you joining us. We make episodes every Friday. Click some stuff below to join us again for those, and thanks for watching.